But yes, welcome to Sunday Scoops. Another Sunday. Today we're featuring the likes of
The great
Mr.
Bunny Lee.
Bunny Stricker Lee, Order of Distinction. And he recently passed away the 6th of October 2020. And that's why we had to just, as how we cut everything to take care of the Toots situation the other day, we had to do Bunny Lee, because when you look at this man's record, he has his, as Richard would say, fingerprint or footprint,
his
all
handprint
over reggae music.
His handprint
all over
is
reggae
all
music.
over.
And he is one of those guys. Along like we talked about the second producer we're doing, right? Yeah, we did Sonia Pottinger. Yeah, so he, along with her, was one of the few people who started licensing of music outside of Jamaica. And as Mr. Steve Burrows of Palmer said, you know, at the time Jamaica did not have a copyright law, so it was, the situation was immense for them to take advantage of Jamaicans. But he forged ahead, and let me tell you, man, this catalog that this man has is massive, massive catalog.
Let me, I want to throw a thing in here, Garth, because, you know...
The reason why I was going to interrupt you, Richie, is also finish up the welcome. So welcome to Sunday Scoops. Those of you who are listening on Mixlr Old School Rules, and visit yaawdmedia.com, and also Facebook Live. If you get an interruption at Facebook Live, go to yaawdmedia.com to watch the video. If you want, you can just listen on mixlr.com, Old School Rules. SKOOLRULEZ. Go ahead, Richie.
Bunny Stricker Lee, in my opinion, and in accordance with the scribes, is perhaps is without question one of the most influential, and by extension one of the most important, the most prolific producers, record producers,
let's talk about his
in the history of Jamaican music. You cannot look at the foundational period of Jamaican music, the transition that the music made between, you know, blues and shuffle, ska,
into rocksteady
and into reggae. You cannot talk about dub music. A lot of people talk about King Tubby's and so on.
And Scratch Perry.
Yeah, but this is the purview of Bunny Lee. Bunny Lee actually is the man who actually invented the term dub and version. And so this is what we're gonna spend the next 2 hours looking at. His contribution, the role that he played, the dominance, and his importance as far as the music is concerned. Over to you, man, Big G.
Born Edward O'Sullivan Lee on the 23rd of August, 1941, recently passed away 6th of October, 2020, at 79 years old. I forgot which artist we were showcasing when you wished him a happy birthday back in August.
That would have
and
been,
we had talked about we need to go to Jamaica and do an interview with him. And unfortunately, he passed before that could happen. Bunny Lee grew up in Greenwich Farm area of Kingston. His daddy was a shoemaker. And when he was discovered, even though he was a trained electrician, he was working in an auto shop. So, and he made his rounds by being a plugger. And if you don't understand who a plugger is a man who goes to different studios, get the records, take them to the radio station, and try to get them
airplay
to be played on the air.
Now, it's important that when we're looking at the Bunny Lee era, right? Here we have the 50s, where you know, the 50s have ended, and you are getting now the early 1960s, and something to keep in mind as well. One of the reasons, one of the reasons for his introduction to the music, to owed itself to his brother-in-law, Derek Morgan. Derek Morgan married one of Bunny Lee's sisters, and Derek would have been building his own little career as a musician, and Bunny Lee technically followed him into the business, and so he was introduced to Duke Reid, as you say. he was plugging the music. Imagine in those days, JBC would have been, well, JBC never really started yet. It was RJR.
It was
RJR. And so his job was to try to get the music played on the radio station and help get distribution within the fledgling, developing recording industry. But he got his start. Duke Reed liked him, and Duke Reed decided, hey, listen, give you some studio time.
Right.
And he decided to use up that studio time and make his own entry in the music. And so he started out with a tune
called Listen to the
Music.
Music.
Listen to the music, right. Listen to the beat.
1967 with Lloyd Jackson and the Groovers.
Let's give a listen.
And that was his outing.
It says, listen to the beat.
And it didn't really do that well, you know.
No, it wasn't. It was an opening shot, if you will.
Yeah.
And it was done with Caltone. Ken Lack's Caltone label.
He didn't have a studio and he didn't have a label.
He didn't have anything for a long time. But you know, and again, this is a testament to the capacity, the tenacity of the man,
the perseverance.
Because he's coming into the thing from scratch. Favor as you will and get some studio time thing. He took that same studio time and his next effort was with Roy Shirley.
Right.
Where
this
became a hit of sorts. Roy Shirley's Music Field. This was released on the West Indies Records label. A label
WIRL.
Yes, WIRL, which was owned at the time. Seaga owned WIRL before he gave it up and went into politics, full-time into politics. But this was released on the WIRL label. Music Field, Roy Shirley. Music Field by the High Priest of Soul. He subsequently came to be known as the High Priest of Soul, the one and only.
He didn't get into gospel or something?
Roy Shirley. That I don't want to... Because most of them were singing a little bit of gospel and things. But certainly Roy Shirley would have gone on and did a couple of other really big tunes, Hold Them and Get in the Groove and all of that. But and which is where he generated the moniker, the High Priest of Soul. But so coming off the success of the Roy Shirley effort, Bunny Lee then recognized that he had the ability to go further.
And an ear.
And right, but you keep in mind, Bunny Lee was not a man who played any kind of instrument.
No.
Never made any pretense.
But he himself said that. He said,
"Listen,
I can't play a note to save a life."
Absolutely.
Well, not in those exact words, but
what he had was an uncanny ability to an uncanny ear for the music, and that I suspect is what would have provided the guidance to him over the years. But within a short time after the success gained from the Music Field, he established his own Lee's label. Right. And by this time now, he had found his thing. The next big tune that came out of his box, if you will, was an effort with Stranger Cole, which became a big tune everywhere. Woman No One Bangarang.
Which was the melody, it wasn't a cover, the melody was taken from, what is this guy's name? It was a British jazz group called Johnny Graham, I think, and the Afro-Cubists. What a strange name. Kenny Graham and the Afro-Cubists.
Afro-Cubists.
There was a white guy, but he had Cuban and African musicians. And, and actually Bangarang is being credited to be the first real reggae song being played. So and this song also, remember that box set I talked about last week? That
yes, it's on the thing, right.
This song also made that box set.
Woman
There we go.
Big G digs in the crates on Old School Rules Radio, jamming the jams that radio forgot about. Tune in this Thursday at 8 p.m. as Big G takes you on a musical journey, unleashing classic after classic. Download the Mixlr app, tell a friend, and listen live on mixlr.com/oldschoolrules, where old school sounds best.
And we're back.
There you go. Now, Woman No One Bangarang became, first, this music provided a couple of firsts, because it was, the music represented that point where Bonnie Lee put together his famous Aggravators band. And the band itself featured the likes of the Barrett brothers, Family Man, right, Aston Family Man and Carly Barrett. Right. And so this now became a massive part of Bonnie Lee's armory, if you will, because it now gave him the tools, you know, and even though he didn't have a studio per se, because he was doing his music, you know, at all and sundry, if you will. Right. But it gave him the opportunity now to start to put serious music together. The next, in fact, he produced a couple of other tunes. A tune with Derek Morgan, who would have been his brother-in-law at the time, a tune called Holy Jack. And then
listen, I need to play that tune, Benjamin.
Holy Jack, but if you play Holy Jack, you have another tune where you have to play right behind that.
Listen, but Holy Jack.
It's a, let me not say anything.
That's how you know. That's how you know that Derek Morgan is a countryman. Because a lot of people just listening or hearing Holy Jack don't know. The song said Holy Jack so I can tie me Ginny. And he was basically singing about two donkeys. Basically, that's what it is. A Jack is a male donkey, right, and the Ginny is a female donkey. So this is
Derek Morgan, Holy Jack. Stricker is getting more and more comfortable with his output. And one of the feature of his approach to music at the time was, as him say, we never have no studio.
Yeah, but well, let's just backtrack a little bit, Richie. Because Stricker now, after doing music feel, listen to the beat,
and recording some
Bangarang, he actually went to England.
Yeah, but even before you got there, because part of the thing is that, remember I said he had become comfortable. He had by now have artists like
in his ears.
Well, him have some big artists too, because him have what's his name? My conversation. Slim Smith had been producing a lot of tunes. He was now courting with the Uniques and all of that, and other artists coming to his thing. So the artists who liked him because they trusted his judgment, and so he had a thing where if he said to an artist, "Listen, sing this tune," he's basically saying, I know why I want you to sing the tune, because I know you have the ability to carry the thing. Right. And so he had by now been making some waves, not only locally but overseas, and we're going to come to that in a little bit. But he, looking around in his little camp to find a man to put out a tune. But Derek Morgan had this tune.
He wrote the song.
Right, but he couldn't figure out who could sing it.
He wrote it for Derek Morgan to sing, and Derek Morgan said,
it's too risky.
It's too risky. Right.
And him turned to Max Romeo.
No, Max Romeo was his record salesman.
Right. And him said,
yo,
go sing that tune here.
Sing that tune here, or don't come back and
work. Max Romeo said, boy, I need the work. Me can't afford for the boss fire me, because nothing now go on. And, you know, so him say, him take the tune and him sing it. And, you know, at first, take it to, because that kind of tune can't play on radio in Jamaica. So it was in the dance hall, and then they took it overseas.
The extended story behind this song is when he did the rhythm at Duke Reed.
Right.
And then now him voice it at Coxsone. And Coxsone had to take a little break, and him ask one of the, I think it was, I don't know which one of the engineers, was a little young guy though. Him say, yo, come man and take over the engineering thing. Coxsone gone to the bathroom. So by the time Coxsone come back from the bathroom, I think the tune. But Coxsone heard it And Coxon said, yo, no. Cut this right now. None of them start this I can't play it in my studio.
Right.
And him said, that isn't even the cut of the song that he really wanted. But I mean, I have to just take it and cut.
And him said, cut, and then, so the tune went overseas.
Right.
And quietly, him said, what happened is, when this tune landed in England, the
BBC wouldn't play it either.
Nobody would play it. But what happened is, the record shops were playing it, and so the youngsters liked it.
And because BBC refused to play it, it created even more publicity.
It was a sort of a ban. But the music, it took off like a rocket. Come, lie down, girl, make us push it up.
After this song hit in England, because it really took off, sound systems playing it, everybody had played it in them garage. The young people were listening to it because they wanted to defy their mom and pops, because it was different from what they were listening to. Max Romeo became an overnight sensation and even toured.
Went on a tour, right.
Long before a lot of the big artists.
Right.
I mean, in Jamaica.
It's an important point you just made, because Bunny Lee had been literally cultivating a stock of artists, right? And artists who would have tasted road long before Max Romeo. And, I want us to just take a little step back, because we jump forward once he played that Hold Him Jack and thing. It would have made no sense we play Max Romeo later on. But the Bunny Lee had been cultivating some talent, and one of them would have been the great Slim Smith. And he made the argument that without him, Slim Smith was a find for him.
Yes, and it was also his favorite.
And he was his favorite artist. So he gave him the work, if you will. And one of the early pieces that came from Slim Smith would have been My Conversation, a song that, again, it also underlined an approach to this record production business that, again, Stricker Lee was the one who authored this approach. But let's give a listen to Slim Smith, My Conversation.
When Val Bennett played this song, which is Take 5, everybody's telling him, say, no, you can't play that jazz piece in a reggae. And he said, sometimes you just have to cut some chords, but yeah, it can be done. And he actually named it The Russians Are Coming. Stricker had a hell of a lot of respect for Val Bennett. In fact, he regarded him as one of the best hornsmen that ever come out of Jamaica. And to do that modification of a standard, because Take 5 is a massive jazz standard. At any time in the world you look round, Take 5 is the standard by which you judge jazz music. And there you have our own Jamaican musician. Taking on something from Dave Brubeck.
There you go. But just want to make the point that we are featuring the work of the late great Bunny Lee, Order of Distinction, a man who, in the opinion of the scribes and ourselves as who are part of the scribes.
Also, all of the artists he has ever worked with.
One of the most influential.
Roy Shirley, Derek Morgan, all of those guys to this day will tell you that this man, and one of the hallmarks of Bunny Lee was his generosity of spirit, and the fact that even if you come to him and say, yo, you have a number for Coxon, he's going to give you the number.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to you. Yeah,
he's not one of those guys who tell you, no, try to keep it.
Hold things to his chest. But without question, one of the best, one of the most influential, one of the most important contributors to the development of our Jamaican music. And, sadly, Stricker took his leave on the 6th of October.
Yeah, 6th of this month.
Yeah,
just a couple of days ago.
8 days ago. And we are using this Sunday's edition of Sunday Scoops to celebrate his contribution to Jamaican music. Now,
most of the songs that we played now, Richard, was in the 60s. Let's look at the 70s and what was coming.
Before we touch the 70s, though, you had alluded to earlier that he had gone overseas. Now, Stricker had built a good relationship with people like Chris Blackwell.
Yes.
And in fact, Chris Blackwell was instrumental in Stricker visiting the United Kingdom around 68 I think it was 1968. In fact, he went there to set up a label for himself, which would have been an offshoot of Chris Blackwell's Island Records label.
Created a Jackpot label.
Right, Jackpot label. And then Blackwell gave him, well, he had the creative license because he never really did it in the quiet. He also consulted with the competition, and he went to Palmer Records as well. And he established...
Who was Trojan's
competition, right. But he went to Palmer Records, and he set up a label as well with Palmer Records for himself.
Unity label, and
right.
He specified that the logo for the
black
Unity
and white
label was
hand.
to be 2 hands, a black and white hand
over a hilltop.
Mountain.
Right.
Yes.
And then on top of that, in fact, it was Palmer Records that helped get that the Max Romeo tune.
Right.
Wet Dream.
Right.
That
song, he said he overheard a conversation. Some men were talking about Wet Dream and all of that, and him kind of put a little thing together and come back and presented the song to Derek Morgan, and Derek Morgan tell him
said not singing that. But the thing though, the song really took off. They said they never made any money. Bunny Lee never get $1 because it was a time with the copyright thing.
There was no publishing rights.
No publishing rights. So they released the music in England. But they got the popularity, and that popularity helped pave the way. So, one door closed, another one open.
I'm talking about door closing and opening.
Let's close this
door,
make a little
and
more
let's make
money.
some money on this thing. Remember, we're looking at masks, and we're also looking at caps, and also t-shirts. T-shirts that you see here.
And it's fall, so it's a good opportunity to do a little thing with our sweatshirts.
All right.
Jamaica, the home of authentic reggae music and reggae wear. Reggae wear, the gear for any occasion. Reggae wear, stylish. Reggae gear, fashionable. Authentic garments, the rhythm of Jamaica. Wrap yourself in the warmth of reggae wear. Get your reggae gear today. Visit www.yawdmedia.com. Capture the rhythm of Jamaica in reggae wear. Vibrant colors for spring, summer, fall, and winter. Visit our website at www.yawdmedia.com and get your reggae gear today.
And we're back.
We wanted to try to get Dr. Dennis Howard on the phone, but I guess his circumstances not allowing him, not picking up. So we're gonna continue. Again, we're featuring the work of the great Stricker Lee, a man who struck out on the 6th of October. And we want to just celebrate his memories, his work. Listen, the thing in his blood, but you can't get out. So Stricker...
Because his name Stricker. Strike out.
We talked about him being in England just before we went on the break.
Right.
What Stricker did, again, not a man who have any musical flair per se, but he knew what he was listening for when he put an artist behind a microphone, and he knew what the audience wanted, and
that's what the groundwork of being a plugger, because not just taking the music to the record shops, he used to take the music to the dance hall.
Right.
And again, remember Jamaica at the top of the charts, or the charted thing later on, but in the early years,
yes,
it was crowd response which gave your music merit. So he went around and he asked, and he was also conversant with record shops to say, what are people buying? What are they listening to? That kind of stuff. So he had his finger again on the pulse.
And he was not afraid for the experimentation. But he came back from England though. In fact, one of the things he said after that visit to England, he said the record shop operators were making requests for them to try to speed up the music a little
production
bit.
and the music.
Right, because you know, I guess we came out of the ska, we went straight hardcore, rock steady. But according to them, the music was a little on the slow side. So we took that information and brought it back into the studios, back in Jamaica. And the next 20 years, we're gonna look at some of the songs that came out of that period. Now, by the time he came back to Jamaica, a couple of things was happening. Scratch, who he had done a fair amount of work with, because the Aggravators was also Scratch's studio band.
Upsetters.
Right. Well, it's the same people, same musicians, but he call them.
For Bunny Lee, it was the Aggravators.
And when they play for Scratch, they call them the Upsetters. But there was a great degree of.
They left and toured with Bob Marley as the Wailers.
As the Wailers, right. But there was the kind of collaboration. You saw that now thing. Again, Scratch was another man who was prone to experimentation, and so they started to play with the sounds and so on, and would have introduced some early dub tune, right? Yeah. I think one of the pieces that came out, Return of Django, which we spoke about that some time ago, Garth, the use of the cowboy imagery and the cowboy songs for a few dollars more. These were what we call, in those days, they were referred to as kind of instrumental tunes.
Right, yes.
But this was the first phase of getting into dub. I want to just touch on a couple of those, and that basically segued into an approach now with some hardcore reggae, because by now John Holt had left the Paragons. The Paragons had left John Holt because the group dissipated, and John Holt was trying to find his way as a solo artist. We were looking at the opening of the 1970s. Things wasn't so good socially and politically in Jamaica. And so the stage was set, and it was a ripe period of time for a man like Bunny Lee. Let's give a listen to...
was in power, and...
right. The social, the repression coming from the Shearer administration. But we don't want to touch on that. Let's play some music. Where you play? Return of Django? Better Must Come.
Hi there. If you enjoyed that clip, go on over to our website at yawdmedia.com, where you can watch the entire broadcast at your leisure. And while you're there, why don't you check out our other reggae music features? And before you leave, pick up some of our Jamaican reggae merchandise, and hey, don't forget to tell your friends.